Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we crack open influential ideas and really get right to the good stuff.
Yeah,
Today we're taking a deep dive into a true personal finance classic, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki.
a huge one.
No, it's testing.
Oh,
Our mission here is to sort of extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from this. I mean, it's a cornerstone book, right?
absolutely. And it really is a cornerstone. First published way back in 1997.
Wow, yeah.
And it's resonated with, well, a massive audience ever since. You've got students just starting out, seasoned professionals,
Right.
business-minded folks, and honestly, just anyone interested in, financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's really designed to give you a fresh, sometimes kind of provocative perspective on money and wealth. Challenges a lot of the usual thinking.
It really does. So if you've heard anything about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you probably know it's built entirely on this central concept, these two contrasting perspectives, these two dads, that shaped how Kiyosaki understood money, work, wealth, everything, really.
Exactly. That's the core.
Can you tell us a bit about these two figures he introduces? Why are they so pivotal?
Absolutely. So Kiyosaki presents us first with his poor dad.
Okay.
This was his actual father. Highly educated, a government employee,
The traditional path.
totally. Firmly believed in job security, academic achievement, get that good paycheck. His advice was basically get a good education, find a secure job, work hard, standard stuff.
Right, the path most of us are told to follow. And then in stark contrast, there's the rich dad.
Exactly. This was his best friend's father. Now, he had less formal education, but Kiyosaki describes him as incredibly financially intelligent. Street smart, maybe?
You could say that.
His belief wasn't in job security at all. It was all about financial independence, about building assets.
So completely different mindset.
Totally different. And this fundamental difference between them, their advice, how they approached money that forms the bedrock, really, of all the lessons in the book. It's what drives the whole narrative. It forces the young Kiyosaki to constantly compare these two worlds and, eventually choose his own path. It highlights that there's more than one way to think about money and success.
Yeah, it creates this kind of financial crossroads for him, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So from these two very different perspectives, Kiyosaki pulls out, like 6 key lessons?
That's right. 6 core principles for financial independence.
Okay, let's jump into the first big one he lays out. The rich don't work for money.
Huh.
What does he
Yeah.
actually mean by that? It sounds counterintuitive.
It is a huge shift, yeah. Because, like you said, we're conditioned to think money comes from working for someone, right? Trading time for a wage.
Your job.
Kiyosaki argues that while, yes, the poor and middle class typically work for money, have jobs, get paychecks, the rich do it differently. They make money work for them.
How? What does that look like?
Well, it means building things like investments, business ventures, passive income streams, things that generate money whether you're actively clocking in hours or not. The big implication is instead of just selling your time, you're building systems and assets that produce income for you.
That makes sense.
And
And building on that, he brings up this really crucial distinction, one I think a lot of people get wrong. Buy assets, not liabilities. Can you break that down?
yeah, this is absolutely fundamental to his whole philosophy. An asset, simply put, is something that puts money in your pocket.
Okay, like what?
Think of, say, a rental property generating monthly income or stocks paying dividends, maybe a business that's profitable and gives you cash flow.
Got it. Puts money in. And a liability.
Takes money out of your pocket. Simple as that.
Examples.
An expensive car loan is a classic one. Or even, and this is where people get tripped up, your own home if it has a large mortgage payment.
Really? Your home?
Yeah, because it often incurs ongoing costs, mortgage, taxes, upkeep, and doesn't directly generate income for you. He really emphasizes how people often mistake liabilities, things that cost them money, for assets.
That really reframes things.
Yeah.
Okay, another key idea is mind your own business. What's he getting at there? Does he mean literally start a business?
Not necessarily quit your day job tomorrow, no, but he is saying your main focus shouldn't just be your 9-to-5 employment.
Okay.
You should always be building something else on the side. Your own business, in his terms.
Like what kind of things?
Could be investments, maybe a small side hustle you're passionate about, even intellectual property, like writing a book or creating something patentable.
Mm-hmm.
The core idea is to create multiple streams of income and gain more control over your financial future, instead of just relying on that one paycheck. It's about building your own little financial empire, even if it starts small.
Right. Diversifying where your money comes from. That leads into the next one. Financial literacy is power. Why is understanding finance so critical, according to him?
It's a total game changer because he argues that knowing how money works is way more important than just how much you earn.
So it's not just about a high salary.
Exactly. And this isn't just, balancing your checkbook. He means understanding real financial concepts,
Yeah.
like balance sheets, knowing what you own versus what you owe, your actual financial health, income statements tracking profit and loss, and cash flow, simply understanding the money moving in and out.
Okay.
Having that literacy lets you spot opportunities, avoid traps, and make informed decisions that maybe others wouldn't see.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, the next principle is really interesting, especially for career advice. Work to learn, not to earn. What's the core message there? Seems to contradict the whole get a good job idea.
It does challenge it, yeah. Kiyosaki suggests your focus shouldn't only be on climbing the ladder for a bigger salary.
So what should it be on?
Prioritizing learning valuable transferable skills, skills that will help you build wealth no matter your specific job.
What kind of skills are we talking about?
Things like sales, communication, investing itself, leadership, negotiation. These are skills that empower you to build wealth and adapt rather than being locked into one role just for the money.
So it's about investing in yourself, in your own capabilities.
Exactly, investing in your human capital.
Okay, and the final lesson gets into the psychology of it all. Overcome fear and greed. How do those emotions mess with our finances?
Well, Kiyosaki thinks many people stay stuck in that rat race, the cycle of working for money, primarily because of fear.
Fear.
Fear of being broke, maybe fear of taking a risk, fear of stepping outside the comfort zone. It keeps them playing it safe, maybe too safe.
And greed.
Greed, on the other hand, can show up as like the desire to buy flashy things, keep up with the Joneses. That can lead to debt and keep people working just to pay for stuff.
Right.
The financially successful people, in his view, learn to manage these strong emotions. They make decisions based on logic, strategy, long-term thinking, not just gut reactions or fear. It's about emotional intelligence with money.
Wow, okay. Those 6 lessons are powerful.
Yeah.
And the book is just filled with these memorable lines that drive them home. Isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I remember reading, the single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth. That really sticks.
It does. And how about in school, we learn that mistakes are bad. In real life, mistakes are how we learn. That flips the script on failure.
Totally. And the classic, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep.
That one's key. It ties right back to assets versus liabilities.
These quotes really challenge how we're often taught to think, don't they?
Absolutely. Which kind of leads us to think about who this book is really for. I mean, these ideas are great, but who does Kiyosaki seem to be talking to most directly?
That's a good question. I think he definitely speaks to students and recent grads, people who probably didn't get much practical money talk in school.
Right, filling that gap.
Yeah. And also employees who feel kind of stuck in that 9-to-5 grind, looking for maybe a different way or just more control.
People feeling trapped in the rat race, he describes.
Exactly. Aspiring entrepreneurs and investors, too, find it super useful as a starting point.
A foundational mindset book for them.
For sure. And honestly, I think pretty much anyone who just wants to get better at making financial decisions and see money from a new angle could benefit.
Yeah, it's got broad appeal. So let's talk about what makes it so enduring. What are its biggest strengths, would you say?
Well, first off, it's just an eye-opening concept. It really can shift how you view jobs, education, money, the whole system.
It challenges the status quo.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And it does it using easy language.
Yeah.
It's mostly storytelling, real-life examples, making complex stuff feel pretty accessible.
Yeah, not bogged down in jargon.
Not at all. And it gives you that practical framework, especially the whole assets versus liabilities thing. It gives you a new way to categorize your own finances.
That framework is super helpful. And I'd add its strong emphasis on financial education. That's a huge contribution.
How so?
It really pushes you, the reader, to build a solid money mindset early on, something traditional education often just skips over. It encourages you to educate yourself about finance, which is, well, invaluable.
True. But, like any influential book, it's got its critics too, right? What are some of the common knocks against Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yeah, fair enough. One common criticism is that it can feel a bit repetitive. Kiyosaki really hammers home his key ideas, which some people find helpful, others find a bit much. Like he's saying the same thing over and over.
Okay, I can see that. What else?
Another big one is that it lacks technical depth. It's great for changing your mindset, like we said.
Right. Motivational.
But it doesn't really give you the step-by-step how-to for investing or building specific assets. It's more philosophical than tactical.
So it tells you what to think, but not exactly how to do it.
Kind of, yeah. It sets the direction, not the detailed roadmap. And then there's the whole controversial backstory thing.
Ah, yes, the rich dad character himself.
Exactly. There's always been debate about whether Rich Dad was a real single person or maybe more of a composite character, symbolic.
And Kiyosaki's been a bit vague on that.
Pretty vague, yeah, which keeps that conversation going. And lastly, related to the lack of technical depth, some say it's too much theory, less action. More inspirational than a practical guide.
Gotcha. Despite those points, though, it generally gets rated pretty highly, doesn't it? Like 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, overall ratings are usually strong. It scores really well on things like readability, the motivation factor, being beginner-friendly,
Makes sense.
and still gets good marks for usefulness and practicality, even with the caveats.
So when we boil it all down, what's the final verdict on Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Well, I think it's crucial to understand it is not a get-rich-quick manual. Don't pick it up expecting a detailed investment plan.
Right.
It's fundamentally a mindset-shifting book. That's its power.
Exactly. It teaches you the stuff traditional schools often miss, how to actually understand money, how to maybe think about escaping that rat race, and how to work towards long-term financial freedom.
Yeah.
If you're serious about building wealth or even just changing your relationship with money, it really feels like a powerful, almost must-read first step.
Agreed. It lays a different kind of foundation.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Given how Kiyosaki challenges so much conventional wisdom, what traditional financial advice might you unknowingly be following right now that could actually be limiting your own potential for wealth and financial freedom? Something to chew on?
Definitely something to think about after digging into this book.